when we're having those moments of aha, or when we're uncovering those blind spots, right? Whether it's through coaching or therapy or friendship or relationship, that's the struggle, that's the hard part, but it's also the beauty, right? Like this is what makes life beautiful too.
If you're listening to this on the day it came out, or about to be in September, so happy September, it does sure seem like time is flying by because our fall season of coaching and accountability groups is coming up fast, starting October 12th, which means registration for our fall season is happening now. So if you missed our first two fall registration events because the times didn't quite work out for you, then good news. We're having an evening registration event this week on Thursday, August 31st at 4:30 p.m. Pacific, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. That's this week on Thursday, August 31st at 4:30 p.m. Pacific, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Go to coachingrewired.com to get started with your pre-registration process. We'll have more information at the break. Now let's get on with the show. Welcome back to another episode of ADHD Rewired. We are joined today by Dana Cruz. Dana has been a coach, educator, facilitator, and trainer with the behavioral health and mental health field for over 15 years. She is currently combining her own personal practice, unique life experience, and education in the ancient wisdom traditions together with modern psychology, behavioral, and neuroscience research in her newly created Mindfulness ADHD life coaching business, Second Arrow Life Coaching. Dana is an advocate for invisible disabilities and neurodivergence. She believes knowing and connecting to your core values and practicing basic mindfulness and yogic techniques allow us to transform self-judgment and fear into constructive reflection, insight, compassion, health, and creative solutions. Dana Cruz, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Eric. It's so lovely to be here with you.
It is lovely to have you here. And what wasn't included in there is, so when we first did, so I'll give a little of our backstory. So when you did your pre-interview, I don't know, it was like 3-4 months ago, I think, we just kind of became super fast friends from that. And then you joined the coaching groups that you just finished. Yes. And you stayed friends with me, which was so nice of you. Yeah, and we've become really good friends. So it's been a real kind of treat to have this new friendship and to get to sort of talk life and business and trying to figure out what it all means as we're all spinning here together on this thing in the sky called Earth. So, Dana, I'm so glad you're here.
Amen, brother. Me too.
So, when we were talking about what we wanted to talk about today, the stuff around sort of like Buddhist psychology and mindfulness, but something that you and I have been talking kind of a lot about over the last weeks and months is sort of that, like, how do we find contentment? And how it's something that I think we both feel like we grasp, but then it's kind of like just holding onto sand and then it kind of just slips between our fingers and we're like, wait,
that's a great analogy.
Where did it go? And we were talking last week, and I think it was last week. Remember the song from Hamilton where it was like just not satisfied? Like I related so much to that song. Like, in fact, I saw that I saw Hamilton with my ex-wife, and during that, we basically looked at each other, and she was like, "Yeah, that's so you." And the character of, can't you just be like satisfied was her? Like, I was like, yeah, it's just a struggle because like I do feel this satisfaction, but yet there's always this feeling of there's got to be something more.
Right. Like I remember having a conversation you were talking about, and it's not difficult to find joy or happiness, right, in these moments. And, and we can have them with ourselves. We can have them in relationships, doing certain things, achieving certain things, gaining certain things, right? But what is it like to just be content? Like to not want or grasp, to not turn away or avoid or be averse to something. What is that like? I don't know. Do people experience that? I'm so curious.
Me too.
Like, please help us.
And you know, it's not often that I think I know the actual episode title, and it could change at the time we finish this conversation. But I think we're going to be calling this episode something like "Will I Ever Be Content?" And the thing that's kind of interesting, I think, to me about this is in this conversation, in the context of this, is that we don't have the answer to this, and we're going to explore this together. So, because it just always seems like this very fleeting thing that like. I feel like I grasp, but then not.
And there's so many avenues, right? Like, should we be like health, fitness people? Should we get into mindfulness, yoga, wellness? Like, what is the thing that we gravitate towards, or what we think is going to create that? Like, is it money? Is it fame? Nowadays it's like people want to be famous on YouTube or whatever, and which is great. Hey, if you're famous on YouTube, like shout out to Jessica, like she's amazing, but I don't know what I want. Do you know what you want?
I mean...
And then when you get what you want, are you satisfied?
That's the thing. So it's like, you get what you want, and then it's like, okay, what's next? It's funny because, I'm coming up here on episode 500, and, people have asked me in the past, like when I've hit different milestones on the podcast, like, how are you going to celebrate? I get really uncomfortable with that question because I'm like, I don't know. I'm going to go after whatever's next. And to me, that's just like, I guess part of it is I just enjoy the journey, right? So I'm like, I celebrate by I keep going.
Yes.
But like this idea of just to sit and appreciate, like how much, I guess, where's the overlap and what's separate between contentment and gratitude?
That's a great question, Eric. I love that. Gratitude for me is deep appreciation. And it includes like wonderment and awe, right? For me, like being in nature is something that I am constantly in awe, like seeing millions of stars or a deer pop out of the woods while I'm walking the dog, or that to me is gratitude, deep appreciation of the now, right? The present. What was the other word that you used?
Gratitude.
Verse.
I forgot to turn the transcripts on, so I don't remember what I said.
Oh, I hate when that happens.
I'm going to turn them on now, though.
Wait, do you have ADHD?
Oh my God.
That happens to me all the time.
All the time. So it's always the hardest question. What did you just say? Let me check the transcripts. Oh, we're actually not in front of a computer. I don't know what to do then. No. So, I've always been someone who has sort of identified as being insatiably curious.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I'm kind of wondering too, because I think curiosity fuels some dopamine. And if we think about ADHD in the realm of self-regulation, and that like is definitely that feeling or experience of, well, if some feels good, more is going to feel better, right? Which I totally recognize, like that sounds like an addiction. And I think for me, that's where the content piece is so hard. So going after whatever it is I'm going after, that's the excitement part, right?
Right.
And then once I get there, it's like, okay, what's next?
Right. Well, and maybe that when you talked about the journey, like for me, I feel like it's the same thing. It's like the journey is part of that excitement, right? So like, can we find contentment in the journey? Can we be constantly curious, moment to moment, and be content in the ever shifting, ever changing life? Can we not compare ourselves constantly to other people? Get what they have, want what they, don't want what they don't, have. It just all seems so, what is it all for? What does it all mean? Now I feel like we're just two rabbis talking around this whole
Oy vey. Okay. So in a little while.
What's the meaning of life, Eric?
Right. I'll let you share maybe after the break some of your history exploring Judaism and go into Israel, and I think that's part of your journey and your story. But I was also thinking too, like if we can be content with the journey, and sometimes the journey just like sucks. A couple of weeks ago, I started EMDR therapy to really work through some of these sort of traumas that I've known have been impacting me in different ways. Like when I first learned about complex PTSD a number of years ago, I was like, oh, I should probably look at that. And like every time something comes across my plate that's around that, like, oh, yes, I need to probably spend some time with this. And,
Mhm.
and so they kept coming. And so I've been in art therapy my entire life. So I've had, I think now 4 or 5 sessions at EMDR. It's fucking hard.
Yeah, it
I
is.
kind of,
It's really
I
hard.
kind of hate it.
Yeah.
And I know like how important it is for me to, because it's already like bringing up so much. It's so funny. I talk about ADHD. So my very like first EMDR session, I'm like, all right, because I'm like, I lean into stuff like, growth
Mhm.
happens outside of the comfort zone. This is what I do. Yep, I'm ready to be uncomfortable. So we do the first session. I totally disassociated.
Mm.
It was kind of bad, right? And
Yeah.
like where I couldn't even talk.
Yeah.
And so my therapist mind you was when we were starting like, well, we should probably slow down and spend some time resourcing and I'm like, okay, yeah, I know all that kind of stuff. Like let's just dive in.
I'm a therapist. Let me
Right,
do it.
right. This is why I think it's important for like to work with a therapist when you're a therapist. Like you got to be able to like call like bullshit on. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
There's a special kind of therapist that work with other therapists and a
yes.
special kind of coach that work with other
Exactly.
coaches.
Yes. So the following session, my therapist goes, so based on our last session, I think we need to go much slower today. And I was like,
Mm.
I think that's a great idea. I'm letting you be in charge now. So yes. I mean
That's
it's
going to be your first tattoo, right? Slow down.
slow the fuck down. That's right. Slow
Slow the fuck
that was
down.
what my last therapist suggested to do was get knuckle tattoos with slow down on
Yes.
the knuckles and then on
Slow
the thumbs,
down.
the fuck. Slow the fuck down.
That's great.
And we think about like this idea of contentment.
Mm.
Is it because like, okay, I'm familiar with this and it's almost uncomfortable being in a space where you're familiar,
Mm.
where there's like,
Yeah.
like what do you think about that?
Yeah. I mean, there's some ease to familiarity, but like you said, that's not where the change happens. That's not where the growth happens, right? When we're having those moments of aha, or when we're uncovering those blind spots, right? Whether it's through coaching or therapy or friendship or relationship, that's the struggle. That's the hard part, but it's also the beauty, right? Like this is what makes life beautiful too.
And I want to circle,
Yes.
yes. And I want to circle back to something that when I was saying before about how like, EMDR has been kind of sucks, but like it's also kind of great. And I think that's
Yeah.
this like weird dichotomy of like, this is not funny. So I think often people think about contentment as this like a step below happiness.
Hmm.
It's a happiness without the excitement. But it's not because like
Great. But I don't think of it like that.
yeah. So it's like I think of for right now, I'm like, yes. So I'm working through some stuff and I'm struggling a bit. I just recently ended a relationship of 2.5 years. So I'm struggling, but yet I'm also content in this struggle because I also know that this struggle is temporary.
Yes. Impermanence.
That's a very
Another
Buddhist,
Buddhist
yeah.
psychological concept there. Yeah. Well, and part of that is, I guess, here's a question. Is self acceptance part of contentment?
I would say absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah. How could it not be?
Necessary?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like prerequisite.
Mhm. Mhm.
Hmm.
How do we get to yeah, how do we get to self acceptance? What's the formula?
Well, it's sort of like the bang your head against the wall formula. It's like, okay, if this isn't working, you got to try something else.
Yes, there's the curiosity, right? Is that constant movement, that constant asking questions, that constant, is this working? Is this not working? How can I make this better?
Hmm.
Is it? Is it about making it better?
And I keep coming back to this idea of like how much of the struggle of holding on to contentment an issue of
Mm.
emotional self-regulation.
Ooh, say more.
Because I feel contentment is like, if we think about like, really like mild, weaker felt emotions and the really big feeling emotions,
Mhm.
contentment is definitely not on the big feeling emotion side. It's
Hmm.
maybe somewhere more in the middle towards the like lesser felt ones.
Hmm.
And I think sometimes it's harder for us to really register and process and like be okay in that space.
Yeah, because the big emotions, even though they dysregulate us, right? And we have a hard time with them, we feel things deeply, we feel things intensely, but it also feeds off that excitement, that dopamine, that crisis situation, that even the fight or flight, there's all those components to it, right? Like happiness and joy and excitement, those are big emotions and those are exciting emotions. But like, how do we have those middle road emotions? I would say contentment to me is a middle road emotion. It's like a balancing emotion. So it's a regulation emotion. And that's what we struggle with, right? Self regulation. So, how do we incorporate more contentment? Do we become more self regulated if we do?
Huh.
We're always chasing after the big stuff, the intense
Yeah.
stuff, the start of a new relationship, a new job.
Is there contentment with being on the up and down sort of roller coaster of going after the next big thing, the next shiny thing, the next challenge, like knowing that that leads towards some struggle, but there's also excitement in it. Like, can we be content with a with high highs and low lows?
And the uncertainty and the unknown, right? Because that's the scary part. That's where the fear and the anxiety and putting all of that on top of what's actually happening.
I wonder if in different languages, if there are different forms of the word content that are more nuanced than what we have.
Ooh, ooh, good question.
What we're going to do really quick though is while all of you at home or wherever you are contemplating these big life questions, we're going to take a quick break as we put an ad in here to tell you about something that might change your life. So we will be right back. Support for this podcast comes from ADHD Rewired's coaching and accountability groups. Learn more at coachingrewired.com. Registration for our fall season is happening now. If our previous couple of registration events didn't work out for you, but you're free in the evening, then we got good news for you. This week, we're having an evening registration event this week on Thursday, August 31st at 4:30 p.m. Pacific, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. That's this week on Thursday, August 31st at 4:30 p.m. Pacific, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Registration is by invitation only, so go to coachingrewired.com to get your name added to our fall interest list and start your pre-registration process today. And if you're listening to this in the future, the website is always the same, coachingrewired.com, to find out how to get registered. Are you wondering if coaching is right for you? What about group coaching? Well, what if you could work alongside other adults with ADHD to develop skills and strategies to reduce feelings of overwhelm and take control of your life? And on those days where the ADHD wins, what if you could have a team that will be there for you to help you figure out what you need to help you get a fresh start on tomorrow? Here at ADHD Rewired, we empower our members by creating a safe and supportive environment that's shame-free and judgment-free. While we do provide tools for learning how to better manage our calendars, build ADHD-friendly routines, and create actionable to-do lists to achieve our goals, we also believe that ADHD management is about more than just the tools. For example, with our plans and to-dos, it's not just about writing them down. It's about creating awareness around where our time is really being spent and how our environments can affect every step of this process. Once we gain time awareness, that's when it becomes easier to manage our energy, budget our time, and set better boundaries so we can engage in the things that truly matter to us. I'll tell you what, it is way easier to say no to something when we actually know what's on our calendar and how long things take. It's also about having a supportive community behind us to cheer us on and to point out our strengths that we have, including the strengths we might forget when we are struggling. If this sounds like the group that you have been looking for, go to coachingrewired.com. This is the intensive group coaching experience you want to get your ADHD rewired. Go to coachingrewired.com to get started with your registration process. That's coachingrewired.com. We are back. So we started this conversation with asking some big questions about contentment and looking at it through the lens of sort of emotional self-regulation and it being this kind of middle of the road emotion, which might be why we kind of struggle with it.
Mm.
I wonder too how much of the struggle around contentment comes from this almost like societal
Mm.
idea that we quote unquote should feel content.
Yeah, absolutely. Or we should be productive, or we should be successful, or we should make money. Or, I mean, it's a culture of grasping and thriving and doing and more and more and more and more.
And how much is it just like we tend to kind of need more novelty than non ADHD people?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a big struggle. Yeah. Is it novelty? Is it thrill? Is it excitement? I mean,
I'm like so cute. Like I would love to include every listener right now in this conversation to hear like how like their
let's see
perspectives
questions.
on contentment and like what's your experience of contentment and
Yeah.
because it's really nuanced and I'm curious too for folks who have maybe struggled with this and have found a way to have more balance and contentment in their life. Like what got them there?
Hmm. Yeah. What's your secret? What's the special recipe?
In 3 steps, right?
Yes, please share.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about Buddhist psychology.
Mm-hmm.
In a nutshell, how would you just like define or describe what is Buddhist psychology and Buddhist philosophy?
So it is understanding the mind. Buddhist word for the mind is actually the heart mind, which is this beautiful combination. There is no separation, right, between the mind and the heart or the brain and the body. It's really about understanding ourselves, understanding the world around us, understanding, I like to say, how we can suffer less.
And I know that there is the kind of a key Buddhist teaching or philosophy around we can experience pain but not suffer
Mhm.
by allowing and accepting what is.
Yeah. So it's actually why I named the company Second Arrow Life Coaching, because the concept of suffering in and of itself, like the hard times that we all have, right? The loss of a loved one, divorce, loss of a job, ADHD diagnosis, right? Like these are all first arrow
All of the
things,
above.
right? This is pain and this is the world we live in. However, we as human beings with thinking, feeling minds and hearts can add to that. And that's the suffering. We can make it worse by self criticism and self judgment and blame and shame and resentment and anger. And there's so much, we have so many things that we can add on to the thing itself.
Mm. So it's this idea when we resist the thing that we don't want, right? I mean, that's where the
Mm.
real suffering comes in.
It's grasping and it's aversion. It's both. It's also ignorance. So understanding or not understanding the way the world works or how we work. It's grasping, wanting, but it's also aversion, not wanting. Like, I don't want this relationship to end, or I want this new opportunity. So it's both.
So how does then one strive through the lens of like this Buddhist philosophy?
Hmm. Mindfulness, being present, curious awareness, experimentation. I mean, I love that. It's so funny to me because modern behavioral science, psychology, even health science, right, is like, oh, we're too stressed and it's causing issues for our body. And now we need to do this. And to me, it's like, there are so many people and so many other traditions around the world that have said this for thousands and thousands of years. Understanding fight or flight, understanding how breath, has to do with our body, understanding how to metacognition, right? Looking at the mind, thinking about the way we're thinking. It's just fascinating to me that there's, it's like no one's saying Buddhism or yogic traditions, but it's all there.
Well, and even like, I'll I'll sort of own the fact that like after grad school, like as a trained social worker in grad school, it's like all data, science, evidence based driven, everything. And there's
Mhm.
definitely there's a lot of value in that, and I'm not trying to dismiss that at all because I still think very much like a scientist, where it's like where's the data? Because a
Absolutely.
certain thing might sound great in theory, but like if it's not data backed, I caution starting there. And I think the more I do this work, the more I'm like, I learn to listen to the wisdom of the feelings and of
Yeah.
intuition. Like it definitely
Yeah.
has been a process of kind of coming back to that over a number of years. Cause I think that there's so much there. And we were talking about this, I think before we started recording about like the experience in group coaching and how the power and impact of sort of being witness and the Me Too experience and
Mm.
how that can really make be sort of a catalyst for that acceptance around
Mhm.
all the struggles. And we were talking about how powerful that is, and yet at the same time people don't think that's what they want,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Like, and then
Yeah.
people go through and they're like, oh, that was the most helpful
Yeah.
part of it. And so I'm so curious,
Uh-huh.
and people are right now, if they're thinking like this ADHD has just been kicking my ass. Like I need to find some kind of help. And they hear us talk
Mhm.
about these groups, and they're like, I just want the planning. Okay, I get it. I have ADHD. Okay, acceptance fine. Like, but like I need to
Mhm.
figure out this to do list and my goals and
Mhm.
mhm. And it's just kind of striking how kind of universal that experience is of not thinking that that's what you need until you kind of experience it, and then realizing, oh, that was kind of exactly what I needed.
Yeah. And I think also, like, going back to what you said with research-based, I think also that's what Buddhism is all about, is like you are doing the research. You're doing the research yourself. You're experimenting with your own mind and your own behavior and your own thoughts and your own patterns. That's part of Buddhist psychology, is doing the work, right? Doing the work to gain wisdom and understanding and to eventually help others, hopefully, right?
Mm. What would you say if you had a client that said, I'm really into mindfulness. I just like to be in the moment. I don't really like thinking about the future.
Mm. Yeah. Is that serving you? How is that helpful? When is it not helpful?
Because I have heard people say before that like they don't think about the future or plan because they just want to stay in the moment. And I don't think that that's actually what Buddhism or mindfulness is actually saying. Would you agree with
No.
that?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we can go too far into the future too, right? Like we can worry and we can have anxiety and fear and overplan and become torn up by a way we think we should happen or not happen. I think it goes back to the conversation before about mindfulness is really this sort of playful, curious awareness. And it's ever changing. And then it's like you seek it and it's no longer there too, right? Like there's a component of that as well.
Talk about
Cause it's
playfulness
like, yeah.
in mindfulness, because like it's in my own practice, I often find myself laughing during meditation because
Mhm.
I just see the absurdity of all the shit that goes through my mind and think it's hilarious. Like it's
Yeah,
not a
it
judgmental
is.
thing. It's just like, why did that just come
Well,
into my mind? Like it's just this
yeah.
absurd thing, and I just kind of I'm really amused by it.
Yes. If we don't have humor, I think we would be crying a lot more because it's really sad. I mean, sometimes it's really sad the way that we think about ourselves or judge others. I think we have to be open to that humor, open to that curiousness, open to that exploration, that playfulness. But it's again, it's like the mindfulness practice itself is coming back, coming back, coming back. It's not staying. You can't stay in the present because then it's like no longer the present, right? It's now the past. So you have to come back to it, right? You have to look and say, oh, I'm ruminating or I'm judging or I'm fixating. You can label it even.
And aren't
You
you
can
supposed
label
to?
sounds.
And isn't it even supposed to be even more removed in a sense? So saying like I'm ruminating, noticing there's a rumination thought, like that sort of separation of self, like that sort of over identification of an experience.
Hmm.
Do you connect with that, or do you think that's just kind of splitting hairs and isn't as big of a deal as one might think?
Well, there's so many meditation practices, loving kindness meditation, mindfulness meditation, formal meditation on and off the cushion. I mean, I think mindfulness based practices, which is what clinicians now are understanding could be helpful, right? In terms of therapy, in terms of coaching. I think what's important is what is going to work for you, right? If I am obsessing about a certain emotion and then I become enveloped by it, right? Or overwhelmed by it, what is it going to take in that moment to say, can I just step out of myself just for a second, right? Can I step out of my mind just for a second? Can I ground myself? Can I notice other things? Can I notice what's happening in the body? Can I notice what's happening outside with the birds and the trees? And can I label it? Is this helpful? But the mindfulness doesn't allow us to say what's next, right? Because it's that awareness to the present, it's coming back to the present, coming back to the present. So then we have to take it further. We have to say, okay, so what's next? Is this working? How can I shift? How can I change? How can I problem solve? Right? That's why I think where we get to behavior change, emotional regulation, maybe contentment.
It's like keep coming back to contentment. How much of being able to sort of experience that feeling of being content has to do with resilience?
Mm, I think very much so. I think that resilience is the key.
Because that's all about coming back.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's like a bouncing back. There's a fluidity of it, right? A flexibility of it. It's also, I mean, we all experience really shitty stuff. Life is full of awfulness and suffering. And it's all these difficult situations and circumstances and adversity that we've all managed to get through. We are constantly building resilience. And sometimes we don't even know it. It's like working with these college students, for instance. They're like, I've never even heard it say like that. Or, oh, I didn't realize that was a tool. And I'm using that tool. And wow, I didn't know that there was a language around this, or I didn't know other people, again, going back to the group, right? I didn't know other people feel the same way or experience the same thing. And yes, we're all unique and we all have our own circumstances and our own traumas. And, some people are more privileged than others, but even within that diversity, we keep going. That's the best advice I've ever gotten, ever, right? Keep going.
It's this idea that we can't control what happens in our life, but we can control, to a degree, how we respond to what happens in our life.
Right. Exactly. What is our response? Instead of being reactive, how can we respond? Right? Can we take that moment? Can we pause? Can we consider? Can we reevaluate? Can we change course and direction if needed? If not, can we stay where we are?
I suppose it would kind of depend on our ability to accept what is and not push away what is, right? The whole idea of acceptance and not resisting the struggle, because that's where the suffering does come in.
Right. And I think what I struggle with personally is, I feel deeply. I was always called a sensitive child. And how do I feel, be in the emotion, experience the emotion, be present without getting overwhelmed by it or wrapped up in it, right? Not disassociate, not push away, not try to distract, but live in a balanced, content way, experience it, live in it without being hijacked by it. Because that's where regret comes from, right? Is then we behave in a certain way because we have a certain reaction. And
I'm hoping that everyone who's listening is also pondering as much as I am right now. Here, let's take one more quick break, and we come back. I want to let you share a little bit more of your story, and we'll try to put this all, I don't know, wrap it up in a nice little bow, or not. We'll just leave the ribbon just kind of hanging there, and because we have ADHD, and that's like my favorite ADHD awareness meme. Like the ADHD awareness ribbon is just like a bunch of random ribbons, just like in a pile.
That's great.
We will be
I love it.
Right back. All right, ADHD Rewired listeners, it's time for me to tell you about a product that I really wish existed. Are you ready? Hey, ADHD Rewired listeners, are you tired of forgetting all those brilliant thoughts before you even get the chance to write them down? Have you ever wished you could just think your thoughts onto the screen? Well, no more wishing. Introducing the next generation of technology, the Brainwave Writer 4000. That's right, folks. It's brain-to-text technology. No longer do you need to fumble around with keyboards or voice commands. Your thoughts are your new typing tools. In fact, let's hear from one of our satisfied customers.
Ever since I started using the Brainwave Writer 4000, my productivity is skyrocketing. I can think about my grocery list, write an email, and plan my pickleball strategy all at the same time.
Well, there you have it. And here's the best part. The Brainwave Writer 4000 can capture up to 40 thoughts simultaneously. It's perfect for all of us who have more ideas than we know what to do with.
But wait, what if I think about something, private?
No worries. The Brainwave Writer 4000 comes with an exclusive "Oops, didn't mean to think that" button. One press, and those accidental thoughts are gone forever. So, ADHD Rewired listeners, what are you waiting for? Unlock the full potential of your brain and never lose a thought again with the Brainwave Writer 4000, which is not real. But your love for growth, innovation, all things ADHD is. That's why we are here for you, because what is real is the support that we are offering you. Here at ADHD Rewired, we have spaces and places for all different kinds of support, like in our free private Facebook community. You can apply at ADHDrewired.com/community. And if you're looking for some real-time accountability to get activated on your most boring and dreaded tasks, you can join us for our Adult Study Hall membership community at adultstudyhall.com. We have weekly themed facilitated sessions and a 24/7 drop-in room. And we even have a monthly Pomodoro dance party that I'm actually recording this during our second work block, and we do that every fourth Friday of the month at 1 p.m. Central. And if you love the show and want to support the work that we are doing, consider becoming a patron at ADHDrewired.com/Patreon. Perks like uninterrupted episodes of this show start at just $5 a month. And if you would like some coaching from me, but our coaching and accountability groups either don't work for your schedule or your budget, you can get a taste of coaching with me for just $25 a month. You can join me and patrons who contribute at $25 a month every fourth Tuesday of the month. And you can even hear the recordings of those coaching calls for just $10 a month. That's all at Patreon. So go to ADHDrewired.com, click on the Patreon tab at the top of the page. And if you want some answers to your ADHD-related questions, join me and the ADHD Rewired team and an occasional guest panelist every second Tuesday of the month for our live monthly Q&A. Go to ADHDrewired.com/events to register so you can join us live on Zoom. That's every second Tuesday of the month at 10:30 a.m. Pacific, 1:30 p.m. Eastern. You can find all of it, our coaching groups, Adult Study Hall community, our Facebook community, and more at ADHDrewired.com. That's ADHDrewired.com. Thanks for listening. And now let's get back to the third half of the show. All right, we are back. So, Dana, I want to just kind of talk a little bit about you and your experience, because I think that all of what we've been talking about today has been informed by the experiences you've had. To say that you've had a fascinating life, I would say would be an understatement. Lots of ups and downs and things that I think a lot of people dream of experiencing.
Wow. So yeah, I grew up in a middle-class family, and Missouri. My parents were old hippies, free thinkers, follow your bliss kind of people, love of nature. My mom was a early education and Montessori teacher. So I got a lot of like independent play and interest and strengths driven type of early childhood development, I think. My dad has always been a high performance athlete. So exercise and fitness was always a big thing in my family. We moved out to Colorado when I was very young, and outdoor extreme sports became a thing. Experiential learning and travel became a big thing. Adventure camps, international schools. I can't believe now thinking about it, like that my parents let me do this. But again, they were just like, yeah, whatever you want, whatever your interests are, like you'll figure it out kind of thing.
So,
That was the beginnings. And then I ended up in India meeting the Dalai Lama, doing teachings with him,
what was that
yoga
like?
retreat center. Oh my goodness, it was amazing. It was incredible. I mean, I have never felt a being radiate so much love and compassion in my life.
Mm.
It was visceral. I could feel it in my body. The whole room could feel it. I mean, hundreds of us.
How do you think that experience changed you or affected you?
Yeah, it really informed me. I think I was like a very unregulated kid, right? Undiagnosed ADHD, diagnosed with learning disabilities, but had no idea that that affected, emotion and anger and self-confidence. So 6 months in India, traveling on a motorcycle, doing all kinds of fun, exciting, crazy things, right? But when I got back, I ended up at a yoga ashram doing a teacher's training program, learning yogic practices and techniques, including Ayurveda, bhakti yoga, all kinds of interesting
And
things.
if any listeners
And
don't know what
then,
that is, I don't either. What are those things?
oh, so Ayurveda is understanding the constitution of the body
Okay.
in like medical practice, has to do with the way we eat, the way we function, how to be healthy,
Okay.
right? Bhakti yoga is devotional chanting. So, kind of like the cantor sings in synagogue, it's a real deep musical practice
Okay.
in Sanskrit language, which is like a body and mind sensation. Hours of meditation, hours of yoga. It was a wild experience, wild ride, total sobriety and also a wild ride. And then I was introduced to a teacher, a Buddhist teacher from there. So I went and did a bunch of Buddhist retreats and meditation retreats and found Naropa University, did my graduate degree there. It's a Buddhist driven, meditation driven education. So higher education, rigorous academic research, but you also have to do your own practice and seek your own understanding and insight and wisdom from your mind. So I think that kind of then led me on a journey to social work for some reason. I don't Social engagement was a big thing at the university. And the first job I think I got was incarcerated youth. It was like a coaching program. It was actually a fantastic, peer driven, accountability led. And it sparked my interest and understanding of working with individuals that, they were called troubled or at risk youth back then, all those years ago. But I think those were also like the deep thinkers and the deep feelers. And we're all struggling in some way. And yeah, that led me to the social work career, and which led me to coaching. So yeah, there's a lot in between, but
Dana, thinking about this, like keep coming back, keep coming back. If we're coming back to contentment, thinking about the journey of your life to this point, you've done all this practice, and yet there's still this seeking
yeah.
for
Oh,
contentment.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, 20 years of practice. Yeah, I think it's tough. Life is tough. Like we're all on this ride, right? And I think that self-awareness piece, like we always go back to that self-awareness piece. And, how can self-awareness inform our understanding or our experience.
Yeah.
And how is that helpful to us? How do we make it helpful to others too?
I guess my question there is like, you spent so much time and had so many life experiences where you were doing really deep work on yourself, right?
Mhm.
Because I've heard people say, "Oh, if I can just go to like a week wellness retreat, and maybe I'll have more content if I do that." And so I think part of it is like, what if we're just always going to be seeking, and what if we could be okay with that?
Yeah. I definitely feel like ADHD created a little bit of that in me, that seeking, that always exploring, that always adventuring, whether it was outside myself or within my own mind. Also, like exploring myself, but also exploring other people. And the more practice, sure, the more you get to know yourself. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's consistent. Or at least I don't know if he is. Are you?
I don't know too many people who are.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I definitely feel like it helped with emotional regulation, especially in my 20s and 30s. I never had the diagnosis. I was never medicated. So lived my whole life in kind of that journeying pursuit of like, what does it mean to be happy? How can I find happiness? Is it within myself? Is it helping others? Is it in this relationship?
Hmm. There's this idea that life's all about these trade-offs, right? And if someone said to you, "Hey, you can experience more contentment, but you're going to lose your desire to go experience the world and do all these just really fascinating kind of things," would you even want
Mm.
that?
I wouldn't change my life. I mean, there are things
But
that
Dana isn't that content. Like when you are looking at your life and going, "I wouldn't
mm,
change anything about it."
damn it, Eric. Are you circling back? Are you saying I have contentment?
All
This is
right.
amazing. Yeah, I don't know. It's funny that letter that you're right, Dear ADHD letter, that was a really powerful session in the coaching groups. And, at first I look into my life, right, with this ADHD lens now, because I was diagnosed, in my 40s. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is why. This is what I was doing. This is what I was feeling or seeking and I wouldn't be the person I am today without all of that. The horribleness, the greatness, what's the famous quote? We never step in the same river twice.
Hmm.
We're never the same. The river's never the same. Is that contentment? Can we be seeking and journeying and adventuring and still be happy
I
and
think so.
content?
I think we can. Yeah, I think it's what Brene Brown calls healthy striving.
Mm,
Hmm.
that's nice.
There is so much more that I want to talk about here, but I'm looking at the time, and I think we do need to bring this one in for a landing. So I know that your coaching practice, you are really wanting to work with college students and with colleges to really help bring this kind of awareness and acceptance and the skills and the coaching piece to groups within colleges, right? Want to talk about that for a moment, and
Yes.
then
Yeah.
leave us with your website.
That's great. Thank you, Eric. Thank you so much. So I am developing and in the process of piloting a program. I call it support, education, and group coaching, because I think all elements are extremely important. And the students are teaching me, and we're teaching each other and supporting each other, helping them to ask the right questions, the right coaching, growth, learner mindset questions, understanding self advocacy, resilience, understanding how, motivation plays a part in emotional regulation and then procrastination, all of those things. So, understanding tools, developing strategies for each individual in the group to, just help them live a more fuller, healthier, successful life in whatever way they feel like that is, not just for the college experience, but afterwards too, right? To get a job, to live in relationships. So college skills, life skills, workforce skills. So understanding all that. I just feel like this age group is such a magical time in someone's life. There is an openness and a curiosity and a willingness to learn a little bit more than us adults. Yeah, I've always connected with that age group too. So I feel like I was kind of a wild one in my youth. My parents would probably say otherwise, but
what would they say?
I don't know. They called me the Buju.
The Buju?
Yeah, the Jewish Buddhist.
Got it. That makes sense.
Right, because I was like in Israel and studying, and I was going to like join the military, and then I was going to become a rabbi, and then it was like, oh no, wait, I found Buddhism, and then it was like, I want to go to this university, and I want to be a yoga instructor. No, I want to be a mindfulness, so again, that's the ADHD part. But
this made me think of another sort of thread on the contentment piece is high excitability. Is it contraindicate the ease of being content?
That's a good question.
Like I just gave myself like a year of like questions I can meditate over.
Yes.
All right. So we do have to wrap this one up. How could people learn more about you? And please share your website.
Yes. www.secondarrowlifecoaching.com. I have also an Instagram. I don't post very much, but you can find me there. You can message me on the website. I also do personal coaching, although I do think that group coaching is where I want to head in the future for striving for something. But yeah, group coaching for college and university students. I feel like I'm rambling now. Take that out, Eric.
I think we should start with that right there. Like it's, I do things and stuff. So come to my website and
www.secondarrowlifecoaching.com.
We will put that link in the show notes as always. Dana, thank you so much. I will, you already have invitation to come back because I know we have so much more we could talk about.
I appreciate that. It's always lovely to talk to you. I enjoy it.
Awesome.
Very much.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
This is Eric Tivers. Thank you for listening and congratulations for making it to the end. ADHD Rewired is more than just a podcast. We are a community focused on learning, growing, and connection. The website is ADHD-rewired.com. You can find time-stamped summaries and additional resources for each episode. Apply to join our free and secret Facebook community. Learn more about our award-winning intensive online video-based coaching and accountability groups. Join the Adult Study Hall virtual co-working membership community. Find all the other podcasts on the ADHD Rewired Podcast Network. Sign up for my email newsletter to get exclusive content that you won't hear anywhere else. And use the search tool to find episodes on specific topics. You can do all of this at ADHDrewired.com. While you're there, click on the Patreon button. If you are a regular listener, consider making a monthly contribution by becoming a patron. If you are able to financially support my work, it would mean a lot. This show is free to you, the listener, but it's not free to produce. Plus, patrons get cool perks like ad-free episodes and access to recordings of coaching calls, and $25 a month patrons can join me once a month for a group coaching call. You can follow me on Twitter at Eric Tivers. You can like our Facebook page at facebook.com/ADHD Rewired. If you're a coach, therapist, or related professional, connect with me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/Eric Tivers. Subscribe to ADHD Rewired on YouTube to see selective interviews and other videos I've made. Podcasts change lives. You can make a difference in someone's life by spreading the word about this podcast. Mention it in your online communities on Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, or wherever you hang out online. And be sure to share it with your friends, family, your therapists, your coaches, doctors, siblings, parents. And if you, your coach, therapist, doctor, or ADHD support group leader would like a pack of podcast postcards to hand out, you can request those at the website, ADHDrewired.com. If you are a member of CHAD, ADA, or any other ADHD support group, please be sure to tell them about this show and all the shows on the ADHD Rewired Podcast Network. You can even show them how to download it on their phone. And if you really loved this particular episode, please hit share on your podcast player. I'm only one person, and I do count on you to help spread this message. One of the biggest things that you can do to support this podcast and help other people discover it is to leave an honest rating and review on Apple Podcasts or any other app that supports reviews. And don't forget to hit subscribe so new episodes are automatically pushed to your favorite podcast app. Looking for more ways to listen and learn? Get a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial at Audible by going to audibletrial.com/ADHD Rewired. Here is my list of must-listen-to audiobooks updated July 2021. Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. Attached by Amir Levin and Rachel Heller. Atomic Habits by James Clear. The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. Crucial Conversations by Carrie Patterson. The Coaching Habit by Michael Stainer. The Body Keeps Score by Bessel van der Kolk. Rest by Alex Sujong Kim Pang. The 5-Second Rule by Mel Robbins. Make It Stick. The Science of Successful Learning by Peter Brown. The Productivity Project by Chris Bailey. Meditation for Fidgety Skeptics by Dan Harris. Change Your Questions, Change Your Life by Marilee G. Adams. I always recommend to my coaches and admin that they read that book. The One Thing by Gary Keller, a required reading for all of our coaching group members. Procrastinate on Purpose by Rory Baden. The 4 Tendencies by Gretchen Rubin. The Art of Asking by Amanda Palmer. And if you're looking for something a little bit more magical, I have fallen in love with the Harry Potter series, and the narrator, Jim Dale, is amazing. And of course, if you haven't yet boarded the Brene Brown bus, all of her stuff is great, starting with Gifts of Imperfection, Daring Greatly, Rising Strong, and The Power of Vulnerability. And if you're an entrepreneur or leader, be sure to check out her book, Dare to Lead. Do you have something that you would like to share? Click on the podcast tab at ADHD Rewired. Click the button to be a guest at the top of the page and schedule a 15-minute interview. This is Eric Tibbers, reminding you to keep learning, growing, and connecting. Self-care is not selfish. No matter what you get done or don't get done, you are still enough. And no matter how hard it feels, we can do hard things. And we don't need to do them in the hardest way possible. Thanks for listening. I'll catch you next week.